Wait, what exactly are we watching here? A family feud? A corporate war? A romantic collapse? Or the moment one of the most famous soap dynasties on television stops pretending it still knows where the line is? Because the deeper you go into these early developments, the stranger the story gets. A man gets hit during an argument that was never really about him. A mother figure turns ice cold towards someone she once embraced as family. A media narrative spins out in real time, and on the other side of the chaos, Bill Spencer may be reaching that rare point where even he looks at the wreckage and thinks, "This is disgusting," and the part nobody can ignore is this: every single person involved believes they're justified. You're watching Soap Pulse. I'm Anderson, and if you like deep dive soap investigations like this, hit like, subscribe, and share if this story gets under your skin the way it got under mine. Because what's unfolding here is not just messy drama, it's a full-on exposure of who these people really become when pride, family, and public humiliation collide. At first glance, the spoiler buzz sounds simple enough. Brooke Logan is said to go brutal on someone she claims to love. Bill Spencer is disgusted by what happens involving Katie and Will. Dylan makes a move. Hope gets to work. Some of the Forresters head out for Monaco. On paper, that sounds like a standard high-conflict week in Soapland, but when you start tracing the emotional chain reaction behind these developments, it stops feeling like a routine spoiler package and starts feeling like one of those rare moments when a show accidentally reveals the ugliest truths about nearly everyone on canvas. Because this isn't just about who said what, or who walked into whose house, or who insulted whom. This is about power. It's about narrative control. It's about who gets protected when the facts get uncomfortable, and who gets sacrificed when the family brand is threatened. And if you pay attention to the details, the real story may not be the punch or even the public scandal around it. The real story may be the terrifying speed with which compassion disappears the second loyalty is questioned. That's where Brooke comes in, and that's why this week feels bigger than one bad argument. Before we get to the next wave of spoilers, we have to understand the emotional debris already on the floor. Eric has been mocked online. Bill, true to form, sees the PR game immediately. He reportedly mocks Eric and the memes spreading about him, and Katie is not laughing because for her this is not a detached media circus. She's reeling from nasty things Eric said about her. That detail matters. It matters because it splits the audience into two reactions almost instantly. On one side, people look at Eric getting hit and say the man was wronged, period. On the other side, there's a more uncomfortable argument emerging. Yes, Eric got hurt, but he also played a role in igniting the fire. According to the information circulating in these spoilers, Eric flat out lied in an interview about Katie. If that is the framing the episodes lean into, then suddenly the whole moral picture gets murkier. Because now it's not just a question of whether Will's actions caused harm, it's a question of whether the family at the center of the storm is being honest about how the storm began. And that is where this story gets deliciously dangerous. Public opinion, at least from Bill's point of view, is already turning in a way that humiliates Forrester. He reportedly reminds Katie that what Eric did makes him look unhinged and makes Forrester look weak and threatened by Logan, the startup now pushing against the old guard. That is not a small insult. That is a reputational strike. It suggests that what should have been a controlled rivalry is turning into evidence that the mighty Forrester machine is panicking. Think about that psychologically. When powerful families feel secure, they project elegance. When they feel threatened, they get sloppy. They lash out. They overplay their hand. They start trying to rewrite reality but they tell very different stories about who Will is. And based on the spoiler chatter, the people around him do not seem interested in nuance. They seem interested in assigning identity. Will is not just treated as the guy who caused a terrible moment. He's treated as violent, dangerous, out of control. Ridge reportedly leans into the whole violent Spencer framework almost immediately. Donna can't believe Will would do something so cruel, and Ridge responds in a way that suggests he absolutely can believe it, because in his mind, that's who Will is. Stop right there. That is the heartbeat of this entire storyline. Not what happened, but how quickly everyone decides what it means. That is the difference between a family conflict and a character assassination. Once somebody says, "This is who you are," they are no longer talking about one act, they are laying down a permanent verdict. And when families start doing that to each other, reconciliation becomes almost impossible. Now bring Brooke and Ridge back into the picture. They return to the mansion after getting the text and rush in to find Donna distraught. Everybody is in reaction mode. There is fear, confusion, anger, and the kind of emotional overcrowding that soap families do so well, where every person in the room is turning the same event into a different story. Brooke asks how Eric is. Ridge wants details. Donna is panicked. Then Eric is helped through the door by Electra and RJ, and the man insists he is fine. Of course he does. Men like Eric do not surrender the image of strength easily, especially not in front of family, especially not when public ridicule is already in play. But there's something almost tragic in that insistence. He refuses the hospital, or at least resists that route, and says it will take more than a sucker punch from Will to knock him out. But was it a sucker punch? Based on the information we have, not really, and that matters because language becomes part of the war. Call it a sucker punch, and Will becomes a predator. Call it an accidental blow in a chaotic confrontation, and the moral landscape changes. That's why this storyline is built for obsession. It's not just about action. It's about framing. It's about who gets to name reality first. And if you think that doesn't matter, just wait until Katie walks into the lion's den. Because Katie showing up to check on Eric is not merely a courtesy visit, it's a pressure test. She is reportedly horrified that Eric got hit, and that is believable, but she's also carrying her own wound, the cruel and false things Eric said about her. So now she enters a room where she is expected to show sympathy to a man who, according to this setup, publicly hurt her first. That is an almost impossible emotional assignment. Be compassionate, but do not mention your own pain too loudly. Be graceful, but do not challenge the family narrative. Be sorry, but do not expect honesty in return. And if that sounds unfair, that's because it is. Katie's position in this story may be one of the most revealing of all. She stands between families, between loyalties, between histories, and she is asked to absorb injury while still behaving like the adult in the room. For some viewers, that makes her the most sympathetic person in the entire conflict. For others, especially those aligned with Forrester, she may still look connected to the side that caused the physical harm. But either way, the emotional trap around her is obvious. Then Brooke steps directly into that trap and detonates it. The spoilers indicate that Brooke faces off with Katie in the Forrester living room, stands beside Ridge, Donna, and Eric, and tells Katie she is the one who wanted this war. That sentence is a turning point, not because it's loud, but because of what it reveals. Brooke is not trying to soothe. She is not trying to separate personal bonds from business tensions. She is not trying to recognize the complexity of what happened. She is choosing a side, fully, publicly, and without mercy. And later, if the spoilers play as teased, Brooke goes even further and tells Katie she is no longer part of the family. That is the moment this stops being a bad week and becomes something colder. Think about what that means in the emotional mythology of this show. Family is never just blood, it is memory, access, protection, history, identity. To tell Katie she is no longer part of it is not just an insult, it is an exile. It is Brooke weaponizing belonging itself, and viewers should absolutely ask, why this hard, why now, and why Katie? Is Brooke truly defending Eric, or is she panicking over the broader threat to the Logan venture, the Forrester image, and her own fragile place between both worlds? Because when people go nuclear that fast, it usually means they are protecting more than the official issue. It usually means something deeper is being touched. Maybe Brooke feels the walls closing in. Maybe she sees the public narrative turning uglier than expected. Maybe she feels that if she doesn't shut Katie down completely, the whole emotional logic of her side starts collapsing. Or maybe, more simply, Brooke is revealing a truth some fans have long suspected, that her version of love has limits, and those limits appear the instant loyalty gets inconvenient. That is why the spoiler description of Brooke as brutal lands so hard. Not because Brooke saying harsh things is new, but because this particular act seems aimed at someone she claims to love. And viewers know the difference between anger and cruelty. Anger explodes, cruelty chooses where to cut. Meanwhile, the younger set is feeding an entirely different layer of the story. Elektra is expected to make it clear that she's done with Will forever after what happened. Again, that's understandable from one point of view. Eric was hurt, and the night ended in humiliation and fear. But the spoiler language also hints that Will may increasingly see Dylan as the only one truly there for him. That is not an accidental beat. That is the emotional pivot being laid down in plain sight. When someone is condemned by one circle and comforted by another, they drift. They don't always drift toward the healthiest option. They drift toward the person who makes them feel seen. Dylan reportedly tells Will he deserves better than how Elektra treated him. Now, whether viewers agree with that or not, it is exactly the kind of validation that lands hardest when somebody feels cornered. And if Dylan has been waiting for an opening, this is it. Not because she wins a fair contest, but because chaos creates vacancy. Soap romances and rebounds often work like politics. The person who gets there first in a moment of weakness gains ground. What makes this more interesting is that Dylan may also be defending Will in a climate where almost everyone else is defining him by the worst possible interpretation of events. That gives her leverage, emotionally and narratively. It also creates a question that should keep viewers locked in. Is Dylan genuinely the only one offering him compassion, or is she making the most strategic move of the week? With Jessica back at Bikini, more reactions are expected to circulate through the orbit of this incident. Conversations that begin as gossip often become the unofficial jury in soap worlds. That's how reputations solidify. One person says Will went too far, another says Eric lied first, another says RJ provoked it, another says none of that matters because Eric was the one who hit the floor. And within hours, the facts don't just spread, they mutate. That's why the public reaction piece of this story is so important. Bill understands optics. Eric understands legacy. Brooke understands emotional alliances. But social fallout belongs to everyone. Once the story becomes Will punched Eric, most casual observers won't stay long enough to unpack whether Will was aiming for Eric, whether RJ escalated, or whether Eric had already poured fuel on the fire through false statements. The headline wins, the nuance dies, and that may be exactly why Bill is not just irritated, but disgusted. Not the concern, but the posture. Not the fear, but the smugness. And this is where the title element about Bill being disgusted starts feeling emotionally justified. Disgust is not just anger, it's moral revulsion. It's that feeling of looking at someone else's behavior and deciding the rot is deeper than the event in front of you. If Katie returns home and says Brooke cut her out of the family, that Eric won't own what he said, that nobody wants the truth discussed because it complicates the victim narrative, Bill's reaction almost writes itself. He may tell Katie and Hope to focus on the collection, to let the world see Forrester's true colors, to live well and move forward. But underneath that pragmatic surface will be the same conclusion many viewers may reach. This family doesn't want justice. It wants obedience. And the second obedience is gone, so is love. That, in a nutshell, is the horror buried in this week's spoiler setup. As all this emotional wreckage spreads, Hope is meanwhile hard at work at Logan, preparing for the new collection with Deacon's support in the orbit, and that matters more than it may seem at first. Because while one side is busy with outrage, the other side is trying to build. That contrast is storytelling gold. One company is dealing with scandal, legacy, and image control. The other is dealing with momentum, reinvention, and the thrill of proving itself. But even that is not allowed to remain clean. Hope reportedly gets a surprising, unwelcome visitor in the design office and does not back down from what she's doing. Again, the identity of the visitor matters less, at least for now, than what the moment represents. Hope is not just designing clothes. She is standing in a battle zone disguised as a workplace. Every stitch, every launch, every sales number becomes political because the family war has swallowed the business whole. If the unwelcome visitor is Brooke, then it could signal fracture within the Logan side itself. If it's Steffi, then it adds another layer of elite rivalry and contempt. Either way, the symbolism is clear. Hope cannot simply work. She has to defend the right to work. And in soap terms, that often means the business plot is no longer really about fashion. It's about autonomy, legitimacy, and which woman gets told she belongs in the room. Now let's talk about one of the most fascinating contradictions in the entire setup, because it may be the detail that separates casual viewers from the people who really understand what the show is doing. Eric may be physically injured, yes, but if he did in fact misrepresent Katie publicly and then refuse to truly own it, then his victimhood is incomplete. That does not mean false. It means incomplete. And incomplete victimhood is one of the slipperiest things in drama because it invites selective empathy. People can rally around the bruise while ignoring the provocation. They can defend the man while dodging the manipulation. Donna, according to the spoiler framing, knows the truth about Eric insisting Katie be his first designer rather than respectfully asking. That means there are people in the room who understand that Katie is not inventing her grievance, and yet the expectation seems to be that silence will protect Eric because challenging him now is inconvenient. That, right there, is where the show taps into something psychologically real. Families often do not lie in grand theatrical ways. They lie through selective omission in emotionally strategic moments. They say, now is not the time. They say, don't make it worse. They say, he's been through enough. And before long, the person who was wronged in the first place becomes the one accused of disturbing the peace. If that is what happens to Katie, then Brooke's cruelty becomes even harsher because it would mean Katie is not merely rejected. She is rejected for refusing to participate in a lie. That's why Brooke telling her she's no longer part of the family may become the emotional centerpiece of the entire week, not because it's the loudest line, but because it crystallizes everything ugly underneath the polished surface. It says love is conditional. It says truth is negotiable. It says the family image matters more than the family bond. And once viewers see that clearly, they won't be able to unsee it. The fallout at the Spencer side could be just as revealing. Bill and Will are likely to have their own charged conversations, and if Dylan continues moving closer to Will, the romantic realignment may happen not through passion first, but through resentment, comfort, and wounded pride. Those are volatile ingredients. Will may gripe, he may sulk, he may insist the whole thing has been twisted against him. Some viewers will roll their eyes, some will sympathize. But what makes the arc compelling is that he may not be entirely wrong. Being wrong in action but right about the hypocrisy around you is one of the most dangerous positions a character can occupy because it keeps them emotionally inflamed. It denies them clean guilt. It also makes them vulnerable to the wrong ally. Dylan, if she plays this carefully, can become that ally. And the more Elektra pouts from a distance and RJ hammers the message that Will is no good, the more Dylan's loyalty stands out. Whether that loyalty is sincere or strategic almost doesn't matter at first. What matters is how it feels to Will. Disgraced people rarely run toward the person who judges them hardest. They run toward the person who says, "I see your side." Then there's RJ, who may use the incident relentlessly to pressure Elektra away from Will. That introduces another delicious layer. Is RJ acting out of concern or out of self-righteous opportunism? Because in conflicts like this, moral certainty can be one of the most seductive disguises for personal agenda. If RJ truly believes Will is toxic, then his persistence makes sense. But if he also enjoys looking superior, enjoys occupying the role of protector, enjoys being the better man in contrast, then viewers will notice. And once they notice, every speech about what Elektra deserves starts sounding a little less noble and a little more performative. That's the thing about these intertwined triangle-style dynamics. Nobody's motives stay pure for long. The war keeps rewarding whoever can spin their position into righteousness. And that brings us to the business fallout, which may quietly become one of the most explosive elements of all. Sales numbers for Eric's couture collection are expected to emerge, and if that happens in the shadow of scandal, they won't be neutral numbers. They'll be interpreted as public judgment. If the numbers are strong, Forrester can claim the world still believes in Eric despite the noise. If they disappoint, then Bill's argument about Eric looking unhinged and Forrester looking threatened suddenly gains real weight. In soap worlds, commercial success often acts like emotional vindication, even when it shouldn't. People start talking as if revenue proves character. It doesn't. But that doesn't stop. If Sheila follows, then the ghost of another unresolved moral crisis slips right into the luxury setting, which tells us something important about the storytelling architecture here. The show is not closing one fire before opening another. It is stacking them. Domestic betrayal here, corporate anxiety there, romantic drift on one side, biological family danger on the other. That stacking effect is what makes a week like this feel binge-worthy. There is always one more thread, one more contradiction, one more, "Wait, are we really doing this?" moment around the corner. And if you're watching closely, the biggest question becomes less who wins and more what survives. Does Katie's place in this extended family survive Brooke's declaration? Does Will's self-image survive being publicly stamped as violent? Does Eric's authority survive the possibility that his own dishonesty helped fuel the backlash? Does Hope's independence survive whoever comes marching into her workspace to challenge it? Does Bill's disgust stay verbal, or does it evolve into action? And perhaps most unsettling of all, does Brooke's own image survive what she's about to reveal about herself? Because once a character tells someone they are no longer family, there is no easy walk back. Fans may forgive shouting, they may forgive jealousy, they may even forgive manipulation. But exile hits differently. Exile tells the audience the speaker wants the wound to last. That is why I keep coming back to Brooke in this story. Not because Bill's outrage isn't juicy, or because Will and Dylan don't have spark-building potential, or because Hope's office confrontation won't matter. Brooke is the axis because she turns the week from scandal into emotional indictment. She exposes the central thesis of the whole mess. People will praise love until loyalty is tested, and then what they really mean by love comes out. Some fans will defend her and say she's standing by Ridge, Donna, and Eric in a moment of family crisis. Others will argue she crosses a line so severe that it can't be justified even by anger. Both readings can coexist, and that is what good soap controversy does. It doesn't flatten the audience into agreement. It splits them right down the middle and makes each side think the other is missing the obvious. That's when social media lights up. That's when recap culture thrives. That's when every facial expression, every line reading, every moment of hesitation gets turned into evidence. And frankly, that may be the true genius of this spoiler setup. It is not just promising events, it is promising arguments. Arguments about motive, arguments about fairness, arguments about whether Eric's injury overrides his behavior, whether Katie should have been shown grace, whether Bill has a point, whether Will deserves abandonment, whether Dylan is sincere, whether Brooke just exposed a long-buried truth about herself. Those are the questions that keep viewers glued to the screen, because nobody wants to just see what happens. They want to see if their interpretation holds. By the time this stretch of episodes is done, don't be surprised if the biggest reveal is not who kissed whom, who followed whom, or even who said the cruelest line. The biggest reveal may be the moral map of the entire canvas, who protects image over truth, who offers comfort when it's least deserved, who confuses loyalty with silence, who mistakes public support for personal innocence, who weaponizes family because they can't control the facts, and who, in the middle of all that, still has the courage to say, no, that is not what really happened. If Katie becomes that person, her isolation may turn into power. If Hope stays firm at Logan, resistance may turn into identity. If Bill channels disgust into strategy, this feud may deepen far beyond bruised feelings. If Dylan gets her opening, Elektra may realize too late that outrage created a vacancy somebody else was happy to fill. And if Brooke cannot see the difference between defending loved ones and destroying them, then the emotional cost of this week will follow her much longer than the scandal that triggered it. That's what makes these spoilers feel so potent. Underneath the glamour, the designer names, the mansion confrontations, the business trips, and the romantic pivots, this is really a story about how fast people become merciless when they feel cornered. The public sees an incident, the insiders see betrayal, the families see war. But the audience, if it watches carefully, sees something even more unsettling. Every person involved is revealing not just what they want, but what they are willing to erase in order to get it. And that is why this story lingers. Because long after the memes die down, long after the explanations are given, long after one couple shifts and another confrontation explodes, viewers will still be asking the same question that hangs over every beat of this week like a storm cloud. When the truth became inconvenient, who decided love was disposable? That is the real mystery here. Not who got hit, not who got dumped, not who boards the jet to Monaco, but who, in this entire mess, still recognizes the line between righteous anger and emotional cruelty. And from where these early spoilers are pointing, that line is about to get crossed in a way nobody inside this family will be able to pretend they didn't see.